Welcome all. Thank you for taking time to join. And thank you, Srini Gara.
Good morning, everybody. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see the screen, Andy?
Yeah, we can see.
Perfect. So welcome to day 15. We are in chapter 7 of the power of now. We have 3 topics left in this in the chapter 7. So the first topic is space. Author talks about the similarities between the space and space outside and then the stillness inside, the true nature of space and time. Again, space outside, the stillness inside, and the time, which is now. A conscious death, which is equivalent to, it's another portal as per the author. Basically, the sleep is temporary. Consciousness is like it's another pause. It's similar to the sleep, except the fact that it is you are moving from one body to another body. That's how author presents it. So we'll go into the details. Space. Just as no sound can exist without silence, nothing can exist without no thing, without the empty space that enables it to be. Only if we know the silence, then we know the sound. So every object, physical object or body has come out of nothing, is surrounded by nothing, and will eventually return to nothing. Not only that, but even inside every physical body, there is far more nothing than something. Even seemingly solid matter, including your physical body, is mostly empty space. So vast are the distances between the atoms compared to their size. What's more, even inside every atom, there is mostly empty space. So what author is saying, whatever is we are appearing as physical body or any physical body, most of it is nothing, is empty space. Buddhists have known that for over 2,500 years. This is a sentence from a book called Heart Sutra. It is one of the best known Buddhist texts. Most of it is derived from the earlier Sanskrit texts, several others from Nagarjuna and several others, who describe the same concept. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So the essence of all beings or all things is emptiness. This is a question for author. You seem to be implying that emptiness or nothing is just not just nothing, that there is some mysterious quality to it. What is this nothing? Nothing, space is appearance of unmanifested as an externalized phenomena in a sense perceived world. Your mind is trying to make nothing into something. The moment you make it into something, you have missed it. So don't objectify it. That's what he's trying to say. So there is space cannot become an object of knowledge. You can't do a PhD on nothing. When scientists study space, they usually make it into something and thereby miss its essence entirely. The latest theory is that space isn't empty at all, that it is filled with some substance. It's not too hard to find evidence to substantiate it, at least until some other theory comes along. Nothing can only become portal into unmanifested for you if you don't try to grasp or understand. So what author is trying to say here is space, just feel the space, don't objectify it, don't try to think about the space. From the performance of, from the experience point of view, just have a feeling of the space, but don't think about it, don't objectify it, then you will miss what it is about. Space isn't that what we are doing here. So the questioning, aren't we explaining the space? Aren't we thinking about the space here? Not at all. I'm giving you pointers to show how you can bring the dimension of the unmanifested into your life. We are not trying to understand it. There is nothing to understand. Space has no existence. To exist literally means to stand out. You cannot understand space because it doesn't stand out, but it enables everything else to exist. So he's giving an example to explain the what when he says space has no existence. What is the essence of this room? This room, it is space. It's empty space. The furniture, the pictures, and so on are in the room, but they are not the room. The floor, the walls, and ceiling define the boundary of the room, but they are not the room either. There would be no room without space. Since space is nothing, we can say that what is not there is more important than what is there. So if you have no space in the room, then you don't call it a room. So that's what he's trying to do. If you just have furniture, those furniture, floors, walls, they don't exist without the space. So the most important thing is space. Then in that you have objects. So become aware of the space that is all around you. Don't think about it, feel it as it were. Pay attention to nothing. A shift in consciousness takes place inside you. So when you pay attention to nothing, then it's going back to the what we learned before. You have external body, you have internal energy body, then you have consciousness, which is linked to the internal energy body. So if you pay attention to your inner energy body, then you connect to the consciousness. So when you pay attention to nothing, going beyond the mind, that's what he's talking about. When you go beyond the mind, thinking stops, then you are going to pay attention. You are paying attention to nothing. When you pay attention to nothing, you are connected to consciousness. The inner equivalent to objects in space, such as furniture, walls, and so on, are your mind objects, thoughts, emotions, and objects of senses. Now he is going from outer space to inner space. So which are, you have, just like you have in the outer space, you have objects such as furniture, walls, and stuff like that. In the inside, there are thoughts, emotions, and objects of senses. The inner equivalent of space is the consciousness that enables your mind objects to be, just as space allows all things to be. If you withdraw attention from things in space, you automatically withdraw attention from your mind objects as well. You cannot think and be aware of space or of silence. So if you, once you stop, mind takes over, you think, then you are not aware of your consciousness, obviously. By becoming aware of the empty space around you, you simultaneously become aware of the space of no mind or pure consciousness, the unmanifested. So you are calling anything that is outside, if you're then your consciousness becoming manifested, then they become objects. Inside, when it is not manifested, then you call it unmanifested. That's a consciousness. This is how the contemplation of space can become a portal for you. This is a way of, there is a concept where you analyze everything, right? So when you start analyzing everything, you question everything. That's the contemplation he's talking about. Space and silence are two aspects of the same thing, the same nothing. They are an externalization of inner space and inner silence, which is stillness, the infinitely creative womb of all existence. Most humans are completely unconscious of this dimension. If there is no inner space, no stillness, they are out of balance. In other words, they know the world or think they do, but they don't know God. So if you are not conscious about a space dimension, then there is no stillness. So that means when you don't connect to your inner body, and you are not aware, you don't become still. That's he's trying to reiterate the same thing. They identify exclusively with your own physical and psychological form, unconscious of existence. And because every form is highly unstable, they live in fear. So when you have form, then form obviously have some certain limitations. When you don't, form does not realize. When you don't see the consciousness in them, then the mind takes over, obviously, and then fear is a natural consequence of that. This fear causes a deep misconception of themselves and of other humans, a distortion in their vision of world. If some cosmic convulsion brought about the end of the world, the unmanifested would remain totally unaffected by this. If all the forms are destroyed because of there is some event happens and this world ends, the unmanifested still exists. A Course in Miracles expresses this truth. Course in Miracles is a curriculum. It's a syllabus to understand the spirituality, created sometime early in 1900s. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. If you remain in consciousness, conscious connection with the unmanifested, see every manifested life form as an expression of, as one life beyond form. He's talking about divine oneness here. So see consciousness in every being and know that every form is destined to dissolve again, and that ultimately nothing out here matters. You have overcome the world, in the words of Jesus, and as Buddha put it, you have crossed over to the other shore. So regardless of what words, what he's trying is, author is trying to say is one life. If you see the unmanifested, whenever that unmanifested is manifested, they appear in different forms in the world, in the external world. If you have consciousness, if you have connected to that, then you have gone beyond the mind. You have overcome the world. The next topic, the true nature of the space and time. If there were nothing but silence, but it wouldn't exist for you. If you wouldn't know what it is. Only when sound appears does silence come into being. So to recognize if there is a silence, if there is no, if you are trying to observe the silence, when you hear the sound, then you know there was silence. If there were only space without any objects in space, it wouldn't exist for you. That means if you have no objects, only space, empty space, nothing, none of the objects exist, then imagine yourself as a point of consciousness floating in the vastness of space. No stars, no galaxies, just emptiness. There would be no speed, no movement from here to there. At least 2 points of reference are needed for distance and space to come into being. So to understand the space, you need to have 2 points of existence at least. That means that some objects have to be there to be able to observe or to be able to realize or see the space. Space comes into being the moment the one becomes two and the two become the 10,000 things. As Lao Tse calls the manifested world, space becomes more and more vast. So he is a Chinese philosopher. So it's same concept, which was, I think, it was described in several ancient scriptures. I think we talked about Kashmir Shaivism. It explains the same concept. You have one consciousness, and one becomes two, Shiva and Shakti, and then two becomes 10,000 things as you go about it from the philosophy point of view. Nothing could be without space, yet space is nothing. Before the universe came into being, there wasn't a vast empty space waiting to be filled. There was no space, as there was nothing. There was only the unmanifested, the one. If the universe did not exist, there was still unmanifested, existed the one. Then that one became two became several. When the one became the 10,000 things, suddenly space seemed to be there and enabled the many to be. Where did it come from? Was it created by God to accommodate the universe? Of course not. Space is no thing. It was nothing. That means it's not an object. It is something, it is not created. So it was never created. The true nature of space and time. Continuation. Go out on clear night and look up at the sky. The thousands of stars you can see with the naked eye are no more than an infinitesimal fraction of what is there. Yet, what is even more awe-inspiring is the infinity of space itself, the depth and the stillness that allows all of that magnificence to be. Nothing could be more awe-inspiring and majestic than the inconceivable vastness and stillness of space. And yet, what is it? It's all vast emptiness. So when you look in the sky, you don't see anything except vast emptiness. You see stars and all that. What appears to us as space in our universe, perceived through the mind and the senses, is the unmanifested itself, externalized. So unmanifested, when it becomes, when you try to, when it externalizes into the world, when it becomes, then it becomes objects. It is the body of the God. That stillness and vastness that enables the universe to be is not just about there in space, it is also within us. So the space is outside and space is also inside. When you are totally present, you encounter it as the still inner space of no mind. Within you, it is vast in depth, not in extension. Spatial extension is ultimately a misperception of infinite depth. So as you go inside, you will realize it. Once you overcome the mind, that space, you can equate it to the shunya. According to Einstein, the space and time are not separate. I don't really understand it, but I think he is saying that time is the fourth dimension of space. He calls it the space-time continuum. That's a question for author. Author responding, yes, what you perceive externally as space and time are ultimately illusory, but they contain a core of truth. They are two existential attributes of God, infinity and eternity. So, infinity and eternity, he's talking about space and time here. So, infinity space is infinite, eternity goes back to the now. Perceived as they had an external existence outside you. So, when you are in now, I mean, God, when you see consciousness is eternity, that means it's always there. It's always in the present. So there is no past and there is no future. So it's always in present. That's what we call it as eternity. Infinity is the space, the vast, infinite space. So though that's where we see God. Whereas space is the still, infinitely deep realm of no mind, the inner equivalent of time is presence, awareness of the eternal now. There is no distinction between them. So as we know, if we are in now, that's one of the ways with direct and indirect. We talked about it, right? So if you are in now, then you are connected to consciousness. Indirect way, you see everything that is out there as manifestation of the same consciousness. Then that is also you are through that also you're connected to your consciousness. So if you are in present, then you are connected to consciousness. Then you become still and see the consciousness in everything. Again, that's also through that also you are in consciousness. When space and time are realized within as the unmanifested, no mind and presence, external space and time continue to exist for you, but they become much less important. The ultimate purpose of the world lies not within the world, but in transcendence of the world. So we talked about mind. Once you take out the mind, then you go beyond mind, then you see consciousness in everything, then you go through your stuff, but you are not touched by the world. So you went beyond the world. Just as you would not be conscious of the space if there were no objects in space, the world is needed for the unmanifested to be realized. So if you just have only space, there's nothing, there are no objects, then you cannot really see the space, or you will not be able to have the touch the space, or feel the space. If you only because you have objects, then you are able to be conscious of space. Similarly, if you don't have world, then there is nothing to be realized. So world is only when the world exists, then you have something to realize unmanifested. If you don't have body, you really cannot do you cannot realize the consciousness. You need the body to be realized. The same way, for this saying, if there were no illusion, there would be no enlightenment. If there is no Maya, if there is no Maya, then there's not there's nothing to know about. I mean, you don't, only because there is Maya exists, then you need to know something. It is through the world and ultimately through you that the unmanifested knows itself. So you are, if every human being inside, your unmanifested self, it's there in in the consciousness, exists as unmanifested. If you want to know, then you have to only through the world objects, and again you are one of the object of the world. Through you will realize you are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. Next topic is conscious death. Apart from dreamless sleep, we talked about the dreamless sleep earlier. That is one of the portals. There is one other involuntary portal. It opens up briefly at the time of physical death. So this is a concept I think we are all, we probably heard sometime or the other from different gurus. The last moment when a person is leaving the body. At that moment, that is one of the moments we talked in different scriptures, as they say, is an opportunity, or you see God. I mean, that's how you see it. You see there is an opportunity to see the God. So even if you have missed all the other opportunities for spiritual realization during your lifetime, the last portal will open up for you immediately after the body has died. So that moment, that's the moment where you see in one way to realize it. There are countless accounts by people who had a visual impression of this portal as radiant light and then returned from what is commonly known as a near-death experience. In the Tibetan Book of Dead, it is described as the luminous splendor of the colorless light of emptiness, which it says is your own true self. This portal opens up only very briefly unless you have already encountered the dimension of the unmanifested in your lifetime, you will likely miss it. Excuse me. So there, I think several scriptures again talked about it. When the time comes, most of the people will not pay attention to it. One of the reasons is it talks about um, because you don't pay attention to it. The reason why you don't pay attention to it, you try to ignore it, or you are not in a position to pay attention to it, is because you have not done enough sadhana during your lifetime. So when the time comes when you are able to leave the body, then the of fear of leaving the body, of fear of leaving everything here, or there you have not really realized or you have not touched the unmanifested within yourself during a lifetime, you miss it. So they see the portal, turn away in fear, and then lose consciousness. That's it. Most of that, what happens after that is involuntary and automatic. Eventually, there will be another round of birth and death. Their presence wasn't strong enough yet for conscious immortality. So the pain you go through, or a person go through when we are leaving the body, is so strong, and the fear takes over, and because of that, we don't stay focused on the portal. We don't see the portal. We turn away, and we lose consciousness. It's I think the Vishnu Purana talks about the same thing. Garuda Purana talks about the same thing. There are many other. Padma Purana talks about it. So if you go through it, so they all say, if you wanted to have to say name of the god, that's how they say it. When you are about to die, it leads to that conscious immortality. That's what they talk about. But unfortunately, most of the people cannot are not in that state when they are about to leave the body. So going through this portal does not mean annihilation, is the question to the author. As with all the other portals, your radiant true nature remains, but not the personality. In any case, whatever is real or of true value in your personality is your true nature shining through. This is never lost. Nothing that is of value, nothing that is real is ever lost. There is, I think, Bhagavad Gita talks about it here in the same context. I think Arjuna asked the question, when I'm leaving the body and going to getting into the new body, whatever I have done here, do I lose everything? And am I starting from zero? That's a question Arjuna actually asked Krishna, and Krishna says, no. Whatever the sadhana you have done in one lifetime, that is the only thing that is real. Rest of it all is unreal. The objects, the relationships, the whatever your earnings or your everything is unreal. So you don't take with you. The only thing you take is whatever the sadhana you have done here to the next life. That's what Krishna says. Author is actually doing the same thing here, the same concept. Approaching death and death itself, the dissolution of the physical form, is always a great opportunity for spiritual realization. This opportunity is tragically missed most of the time, since we live in a culture that is almost totally ignorant of death, as it is almost totally ignorant of anything that truly matters. So when you're during the death, when you're when you go through the death, you cease to derive your identity from your psychological and mind made form. So when death happens, you leave the body, so your the five form dissolves. So now once the form dissolves, so what you're taking is as in Krishna's words, the I think he said the the fragrance of the flower. So whatever the sadhana you have done is like a fragrance of the flower that stays with the flower. So when you leave, the fragrance is always with you. The sadhana is always with you. You then realize that death is an illusion, just as your identification with form was illusion. The end of illusion, that's all that death is. It is painful only as long as you cling to illusion. So when you realize that that is Maya, then pain goes away. Then you accept it, then that's a reality. So if you don't accept it, you are in Maya, and the pain always be there. Okay, we can stop here. That completes the chapter 7. So now we'll get into the meditation. I'm stopping the share. Close your eyes. Clasp your fingers. Cross your legs. Start focusing on the breath. 1 minute. Seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep your hands on your eyes. Open your eyes. Look at your palms. Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen. Look at what we covered today. Okay, so we try to cover a couple of things here from today, which is there are certain things we need to recognize as we go about our daily life. One is make sure we become aware of the empty space. That means no mind around you. Obviously, when it is no mind, then there is stillness in the body, inside your body, and you become aware of pure consciousness. Realize the two existential essential attributes of God, which is infinity and eternity, which is space and now. We need to root. Once we realize those two, we will pick at least one of them, and then we touch the consciousness. Purpose of the world lies not within the world, but in transcendence of the world. So once you go beyond the mind, thinking stops, you see the world as it is in the pure consciousness. The second thing we talked about, we have gone through today is recognize the last portal will open up immediately after that body has died, and prepare yourself so that we don't turn away in fear and miss the opportunity of conscious immortality. This is again was talked about in several scriptures. I think one of the famous story probably know about it. I think his name is Ajamir in the Bhagavatam, I think. So he's a Brahmin born into a very good family, destroys his entire family over a period of time while he lives in this world. And towards the end of his life, he says Narayana towards the end, and there are certain things he has done before to be able to get there. Obviously, actually talks about it, but still he was able to do it, and then he was he got the conscious. I mean, got an opportunity to meet the conscious immortality. So that's just an example. There are several examples in the scriptures if you want to go about. Okay, so that's all we covered today. So I'll stop the share now.
Thank you,
Back to you,
Srini.
Bhakti. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Thank you so much for the wonderful sessions. I know this last 1 week, it's amazing sessions, and every day there are like such a great insights you are presenting. So thank you so much for that. Masters, anyone would like to share any experience or questions? No other questions. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Thank you, Srinidhara.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everybody. Bye.